Hi, I'm Tiffany Patlin, host of the Tiffany Talks Health and Wellness podcast, where I discuss tools, tips, and techniques to heal your mind, body, and soul. I am on a godly mission to heal the world. Hello, Tiffany Talks listeners. I'm here today with an amazing guest, Victor Sagalovsky. He is the co-founder of Litewater, the purest water on earth. And it was really important for me to bring him on because this is a health and wellness podcast and we all need water, right? Thank you, Victor, so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Tiffany. Happy to be here.
I really love what you're doing, and I'm so grateful to be able to give you this platform to talk about water. We need water to survive. It's one of the essential things that us human beings need. So I'm very curious to hear more, and I would love for you to just share, what is it that inspired you to start this company?
I'm very interested and have been most of my life in the healing arts and health optimization and what people call anti-aging, although I like to call it pro-youthing. I don't like the term
I like that.
anti-aging. I prefer we use pro-youthing. So I've been fascinated by these things ever since I was a kid. I was an armchair gerontologist, if you will, from a young age, trying to understand what causes us to age. And so I got into many different things to get me this far on this path. And certainly the most important thing, other than the air we breathe, is the water that we drink. So when you look at the water that our bodies make, because in the process of making energy, the byproduct of energy production in our bodies is water. It's known as metabolic water. And when you look at the water that's outside of our bodies, it's nothing like metabolic water. So how do we create metabolic water outside? That's what we have now with light water. That's why we call it the purest water on earth, because it's the closest water there is to the metabolic water that our bodies make. And so there's an enormous history and science to this, enormous amount of data, 60 plus years of research pointing to the fact that this contaminant, this natural contaminant on Earth known as deuterium, which is a form of hydrogen. It's a heavy hydrogen, and it's in all water. And so the data shows that when you reduce this contaminant or this deuterium in water, then it has an incredible benefit for metabolic health.
Interesting. What about fluoride?
I don't like it. Well, sodium fluoride. Obviously, there's natural fluoride that's in a lot of foods and everything. But when you look at sodium fluoride, which is what they add to water, it's very, very bad. But this is a different concept, because when you think about fluoride and chlorine and whatever other heavy metal contaminants you have in water, these are not water. Okay, so when we remove deuterium from water, we're actually removing a type of water, which is known as semi-heavy water or heavy water. So a little bit of water has this type. So we know, let's back up a second. So we know water is H2O, right?
Right.
And that means two hydrogens and one oxygen. So that makes a water molecule. Now, when that one hydrogen is replaced by a deuterium, which is a heavier form of hydrogen, that's known as an isotope, then you have a water molecule that is HOD or HDO, that H hydrogen being replaced by deuterium, or hydrogen 2. So if you have a liter of water, or let's say 2 liters, 2 liters of water. 2 liters of water is 40,000 drops of water. So in that 40,000 drops, we think it's H2O. If it's pure, if you remove all the other non-water components of it. And turns out that 12 of those drops in 2 liters of water are not H2O, they're HOD, or as I said, HDO, that D meaning deuterium or heavy hydrogen. So this is what we remove or reduce. And when we do that, the water starts to more closely resemble the water that our bodies make.
Wow. So how is it different than mountain spring water?
Well, spring water is there's different types of spring water, obviously. Spring water is mineralized, and spring water has deuterium in it. All water on Earth has about 150 parts per million. And in certain places, it goes down to the 120 range. And even below, if you're in Antarctica, you have a deuterium level in the water of 89 parts per million, which is water that's locked in time from millions of years ago when the Earth had less deuterium. So it's like apples to oranges comparison. What we do is we simply remove everything out of water and then remove the deuterium. So some spring water, if it's glacial source, will have a little less deuterium, but it's a completely different concept, because what we're talking about here is metabolic water and getting a water that's closer to the water that's in our cells, that's inside those nano-confined spaces inside our mitochondria. So spring water is a whole different thing. Spring water can be very tasty because it's well mineralized, like a really good nice spring has a good profile, taste profile. Some people aren't sensitive enough, don't have a sensitive enough palate for water. Others do, so they'll notice variances in different springs, taste of water, and so forth. But that's very different than the concept of deuterium depletion.
Interesting. I also had the other question was because what were you drinking prior to this? You were drinking water, the same water as everybody else. So, and then you started drinking this water. What
That's
were
right.
the obvious benefits that you noticed in your mind, body, and everything?
Okay, so the benefit is not from the water. Let's just be clear on that. The benefit is what the water does. And what the water does is allows your body to reduce the deuterium load that it has. So we have this burden of deuterium, 1 to 2 grams or so, not very much, it's a very small amount, but this wreaks havoc over time on our entire physiology. And it's one of the main reasons why we age. It's starting to come out. There's a science known as a branch of biochemistry, a new science, uh, known as deuteronomics. It endeavors to explain how deuterium is managed by the body. So the effects that you notice that when you reduce your deuterium level by 20% are metabolic benefits primarily. And metabolic benefits actually encompasses a lot of things. But when you reduce your deuterium level, your physiology is now running like it should, because the science tells us that our physiology is really made for deuterium level that's about 20% lower than what we have, meaning 150 is the average. And then if you lower it 20% in the 120 ppm range, then you have all this incredible metabolic benefit. And what does that look like? Well, the body's a self-healing organism, so it looks different to different people, but almost across the board, you'll find that you have more functional energy. It's not like an energy like coffee gives you, or adrenaline and things like this, but more of an energy that is more of like a return to your youth, a return to being young again, where you don't think about what anything you're doing. You just do it. You want to climb a
Mhm.
mountain, you just do it. You want to whatever you want to do, you have unlimited energy for it, and then your self-healing ability drastically improves. At least I've seen that in other people. So and everything downstream of that, your sleep. It's just a number. People use this for all kinds of conditions, not the water, but the lifestyle of deuterium depletion. So drinking deuterium depleted water is the easiest and fastest way to deplete deuterium from the body. It's not the only way. You can also do it through ketogenic diet, fasting, dry fasting preferably, more sun exposure, saunas, anything that will optimize the function of the mitochondria, because the mitochondria is attempting to limit this deuterium from the energy production pathways, from what happens essentially in the electron transport chain. So, but it gets overrun. Our cells get overrun by this deuterium, so it cannot. This is why we're primarily start aging, and then as the years go on, we start aging faster actually. So this is a so you have either a cumulative benefit from deuterium depletion, or you have a cumulative deficit of everything of your energy pathways. I mean, this is an energy game that we're playing here, and life is about energy. So you need if you don't have the energy, then cells don't replicate properly, and then you have all kinds of mutations and errors and transcriptions and things downstream that look like disease, that look like physical signs of aging, loss of vitality. So I think it's the restoration of vitality that we're most keen on. So we're not going to stop aging, but we can slow it down, and we can restore that vitality so we have that functional health span that can be for our entire lifespan, and not just a short part of it where we feel vibrant and alive and virile. So this is something that we should feel our entire lives. And so when you reduce the deuterium in the body, that's what it allows you to experience.
Wow, I'm just thinking it's like you're actually drinking from the fountain of youth.
We call it fountain of youth. We use that in our marketing, and yeah, it's a practical fountain of youth. And what it shows you is that your body is the fountain of youth. It's just giving it the right building blocks that it needs to keep going. So, like I always say, we have all the tools, but we may not necessarily have the manual. So while we're here, we can write this manual. And I stand on the shoulders of giants, because there's people that have done incredible work over the last 60 plus years to get us to this place where we not only understand the science, but we could also create the technology to reduce deuterium from water, because it's very difficult. It's not something you can do at home. There's no like home water filter. It's very not. It's almost not even something you can do in a commercial venue. It's a very industrial process, because you're removing a type of water from water, and that's very difficult. And it took decades to figure out how to do it in a way that it can be lower cost enough to be able to offer it to the market. So that's what we did, and my team and I, have been at this for a very, very long time. Because when I saw that, when I got into the science of this, it made sense to me. So this is something that's completely overlooked over the last, I guess, since the late 50s, when it was discovered that if you lower deuterium in water, that you'll extend lifespan and health span. And then it was just these things take a long time to get into basically public knowledge, or at least to a point where you could have a product that's available to people. So I've been at this since 2004 personally, pursuing this.
Wow.
So and we started the company in 2019, and then leading up to that, the engineers and the scientists that were developing the actual process for the reduction of deuterium, that took 12 plus years. So this has been a very long road to create a new standard in water purity, because that's what this is. And again, that new standard just shows that the water that is best to drink is the water that is closest to the water that we make.
So I just feel like, being a woman myself, all the women out there listening are wondering, because I'm sure that word spoke to them, restoring vitality. So for those women out there that want to get their hands on this fountain of youth water, where is this water available, and what is the cost?
Drinklightwater.com. Lightwater is spelled Litewater, so it's drinklightwater.com. And I should point out that this is not something that you need to do for a day or a week. This is something. First of all, it's going to take about 90 days to lower your deuterium by 20%, because you only reduce a little bit per day, like half a part per million to 1 part per million per day. Oh, and then like day one is like 3 months out. That's your day one. So this is something that takes time. So everybody should get educated on what it is and what it's doing and how it is helping you, or how it intends to help you, because it is pricey when you think about it, because you're going to spend over $300 a month for water, which we're not used to, but that's because it's such a difficult thing to do. So the power requirements and the energy requirements that we need to create this water, and just the massive infrastructure that exists to do it, makes the water expensive. However, what we make is like this has 10 parts per million. So that means it's 94% lower in deuterium than all regular water, whether it's spring water, distilled water, whatever, beverages, everything. So you can dilute it. You can dilute it therapeutically from 1 to 1 to 1 to 4. So that takes the cost way down. But you do this consistently, and you do it over time, and you do it for 3 months, and that's the beginning of your deuterium depletion journey, because that's when you get down by about 20%, and then you keep doing it, and the benefits are cumulative over time. So yeah, there's a guidebook that we make available for free online, and I encourage everybody, before they start on deuterium depletion, that they read it and understand what they're getting into, because they start spending all this money on water, and then they stop, then it's counterproductive, because they've spent a bunch of money and they didn't get the results. So the results come in time. Now, that said, some people feel them nearly instantly after a few days, which is rare. I think the older and sicker you are, the quicker you'll feel a change. But yeah, this has huge implications for self-healing, for athletics, for longevity. So if you're interested in this is I encourage you to study up on it first and understand what you're doing and why you're spending the money on water, and how it's a different type of intervention than anything else out there, because we take supplements, and we have all these healing modalities that require we take things, right? That we consume things, whether it's herbs or drugs or food. I'm a big believer in food as medicine. I've been a proponent of that for 30 plus years, been educating people on how to eat right. Okay. And but deuterium depletion is the opposite. It's about reducing something from the body. It's about removing something, that deuterium burden. So when we remove this heavy component, we get lighter, right? We get and if you were to put it on a scale, if you put regular water and light water on a scale, you see light water weighs a little bit less, because it has that heavy water component removed. Okay, so heavy water slows us down, and when you reduce it or remove it, we can restore our original blueprint of what it's of, if you remember what it's like, what it feels like to be in your youth, where you didn't worry about anything in terms of how much energy it took. That's kind of what the promise of this is to restore that metabolic function and carry that through all the way through life. And yeah, the other thing I noticed, it's really good for collagen. It's good for skin. It just restores vitality and a practical fountain of youth.
Man, I don't know if you have it yet, but I feel like it needs to be in hospitals. The alternative holistic doctors need this. I mean, in those cancer facilities, like, this water could be like in so many places that could just help. Because I would agree with you about, you're speaking my language and you're talking about healthy eating. So people are eating all these healthy foods, and now it's like, pair it up with this light water. So that way you can, how do you pronounce that word again?
Deuterium?
Deuterium.
Deuterium, yeah.
How do you spell that?
Deuterium. If you look at the periodic table, you'll see that hydrogen is number 1, right? It's the simplest element in nature, but hydrogen has a couple other versions of itself. So this is a heavier form of hydrogen known as deuterium, and there's not much of it, but it's here, and it's been it's the amount of deuterium in our water has been slowly increasing over the last 100,000+ years and more. Because, like I said, if you go to Antarctica and you drink the water there, it's 89 parts per million, whereas the ocean is 155. So how did that happen? It's water that's locked in time from a previous age. So where this all comes from is they were trying to in Siberia in the 50s. They were trying to understand why there were a couple populations of indigenous people that had extremely long lifespans, and had a lot more people over 100 than anywhere else in the Soviet Union or Europe or the world for that matter. And they were trying to figure out why. And then was it food, genetics, and then they realized after extensive study that they were drinking water that was 16% lower in deuterium. And this unlocked this entire field, because once they started researching further, they found that in fact plants, animals, they're all dependent on this they're dependent on this hydrological cycle. So if you're somewhere where the hydrological cycle is such that you have less deuterium, then statistically you'll live longer, and you'll be healthier, because this interferes with our energy production, and it interferes at the source level, right at the very core of our energy production. So I'm not one for superficial band-aids, so I was always interested in discovering the inner mechanisms of what causes aging and disease. So I found it. It's deuterium. It's a big part of it, and it's not that we can remove it all, but just by reducing it a little bit, the benefit is enormous. And to your point, you said about hospitals and cancer and all that, they use this as an adjuvant. A lot of healing practitioners use this as an adjuvant, meaning that they don't necessarily use it as a medicine or a drug, but they use it to support whatever else they're doing, because of the net energy benefit that you get from deuterium depletion. Again, not from the water, but from the act of depleting the deuterium and keeping it down in the body, and then the body can catch up, right? Because we're always fighting this contaminant in our energy production pathways. The body's trying to keep it out, and the way we know that is because the water that our bodies make is 60 to 70% lower in deuterium. So, and when you look at, if you're interested in the science, you can look into it and see that this is purely a mechanical problem. This deuterium, or this hydrogen 2 or heavy hydrogen, it's just simply too big. Okay, and kinetically it functions, it's slower than regular hydrogen, which is known as protium. So it drags everything down. It's like if you woke up tomorrow and you weighed twice what you weigh now, you'd have to figure out how to live your life differently. And essentially that's what's happening in our bodies. Our bodies run on hydrogen, but roughly about every 5 to 15 seconds, we get impinged upon by this heavier hydrogen. And oxygen doesn't discriminate. It'll bind with hydrogen to make water, and it will also bind with deuterium to make a heavy water. So because of this, it creates a problem for our health.
I'm so grateful that you came on to share this, because I am inspired, and I'm definitely going to look into this deeper. So I encourage everybody out there that's listening to go to drinklightwater.com. It's down in the banner below, and the links will all be in the description box. And I encourage you to, is it a downloadable document, the guide?
It's a downloadable document. It's a great place to start. If you're like a health practitioner, I encourage you to go to Deuterium Depletion Summit. We put on a summit periodically where we invite the world's leading experts in this new field of deuteronomics to speak. And so we had another one this year, and that has 10 of the top doctors, researchers, scientists in the world that really get into this on a more of a therapeutic side, or more on the science, something that a practitioner would want. But if you're just a consumer that wants to understand this a little further, yeah, the deuterium depletion guide is a great place to start. And also we offer testing. So You want to know what your deuterium level is in your body after you start drinking this. So you can test before and you can test after. Generally, I tell people that don't waste the $200 to test it before, although you can, but because you can tell what your deuterium level is depending on where you live and what your lifestyle is. And most people are somewhere between 145 and 155. If you're over 150, that's really, really bad. 150 generally is bad, but anything above that is way bad. So you can, or you can live. There's certain places in the world where the tap water or the water that we drink out of the tap or the groundwater is naturally lower in deuterium, usually in mountain type areas, and then your body will be slightly lower in deuterium, and you can see that in like when you travel and you go to places where there's less deuterium in the water, and the people may not necessarily know about it, but you'll see that there's just a more active population, more athletically active, more like it's very interesting. Like when you start unraveling this, you see that even animal migration cycles depend completely on deuterium. Like why do birds migrate thousands of miles from the trout from? Well, I'll give you an example. Birds travel in the winter. They go to warmer places, but they return to lay their eggs up in the northern climates in Canada. It's because it's slightly lower in deuterium, so you have a higher chance of survival for the young. So when you start looking at this in nature, this is the deuterium cycle is very well represented. So it's just something we're learning about now, because it wasn't until 1932 that it was discovered that there were different forms of hydrogen. Up until that time, we thought all hydrogen was the same. So this is less than 100 years. So this is very, very new information in that respect. In the grand scheme of things, this is very, very new information. So I think in the future, humanity will recognize that what we have here is a new standard in water purity, and more people will be able to consume this, or at least as you're more conscious of deuterium depletion, you could do the necessary things to maintain your metabolism in a proper way.
I love it. This has been so fascinating, especially being somebody who cares about, health and wellness. So thank you so much, Victor, for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate it too.
All right, you listeners, we will see you on the next episode. Bye for now.